Welcome back. We're stuck in my little tiny workshop here at the minute and we're looking straight at this next job that we need to do. And as we mentioned in the last video, we have to put a new axle on the back of this quad. It's not a big job, it takes a little bit of time, but anybody with any kind of set of hands can do this themselves and save yourself an absolute fortune. So we're going to get straight into it now. So the first thing we're going to do, and I have been soaking them in WD-40 for the past few days, is probably the hardest job, and that's getting these bucks here loosened. We have to get them loosened when the wheels are on so that the axle doesn't turn, and if we get that over us, we'll strip off the wheels and we'll take off the hubs. I've put some heat on this because it is a weapon to get off. There we go. Now we have the other one loosened as well. Again, I took some heat. I don't mind using heat on this side, but you can't use it on the other side where you'll melt the seals. This side I don't care because I'm putting new seals in here anyway, a new bearing. But I'm not touching the other side because I don't think it needs to be touched. There we go. Right, last one. And this is the one I'm fearing because it's always the last one that causes trouble. Oh yeah! There we go. Now it's time to rip off the wheels. So the next thing we need to remove is the brake drum guard here at the bottom. I baited these in WD-40 this last couple of nights. It makes a huge difference when you want to take them off. That off. Alright, the next thing we need to remove is these 8mm studs the whole way around this drum. So if you're ever taking off one of these drums to replace your brakes, now you don't have to take off the wheel if you don't want. You can do it without the wheel off, but it is much easier to take the wheel off. And just when we talk about the wheel, look at the state of that. Everything's just welded. Yeah, that's a mess, so it is. This side, at least we have a casting nut. It's very loose. It's definitely not going to be able to be used again because I think it's ripped of its threads. The weld is what's holding that. Certainly not that nut. So we'll have to order 2 new casting nuts because I do not have them at the minute. I thought the ones that were on it would have been good enough, but they're not, so I'll get 2 brand new ones of those. But for now, if you ever want to take off one of these drums, if you look along the side, you'll see a little notch like that. Stick your screwdriver in there and just start from there. Just work it out the whole way around, and there it is. There's your drum housing off. Now before I do any more, just so you know what I'm at, we have a brand new axle. This axle can't be disassembled because it's welded. So what I have to do now is I have to cut this axle. I'm just going to cut it on both sides because I want it to fit to roll this drum off as well. Removing this guard. Lovely pile of stuff in there to get rid of as well. There's off. Now the last person that had this put this spring on. That spring should not be there. It's obviously was put on to help pull this back to release the brakes. A little bit of corrosion in here, or the spring here is broken. Cables are well and truly seized as well, which doesn't help. So we're going to remove this spring. We'll take that off. Don't need that no more. We're going to release our brakes completely now and remove these cables. Now our hub will turn, releasing the pressure of that, so we now can take off our brake drum. There it goes. Yeah. Right, so next thing we're going to do is remove our brakes. And that's as simple as how you take the brakes off. They're all gone hard, they're very badly pitted as well, so not in good shape. Even the drum itself is very corroded inside, so we're going to wire wool that all out, make it nice and fresh and clean, and put brand new brakes on their place. That axle bearing isn't in too bad a shape. See, the seal has well cracked on it, well perished. I'd say that's the original one, but that's the axle bearing out. There's our axle out. Just put a wee bit of grease on the splines of the new shaft. That set into place actually very easy. After actually doing a bit of inquiry, that shaft looked a little bit different than the other one. Just the way the splines was, they were a little bit wider on this side. The old one had short splines on this side and longer ones on this one. This one's slightly different. I bought the axle of Friel's ATV quad parts in Donegal. I think I mentioned it right, Friel's, is that right? Yeah. I had to do a lot of searching to find a back axle for this, because this is an spurious back axle. A Honda back axle for this would cost you 500 plus. Yeah, there was no way I was going to spend €500 on a back axle for this, not a mission. So I managed to get this one, and I got a set of hubs, which you're going to see now shortly. And I got the bearing kit and them steering rod ends that you see me putting in the first video, all for about half the price, a little more than half the price, but not much, of one axle on its own from Honda. Yes, there's people say you should always put genuine parts in. You know what, an axle like this, I don't see why. It's just manufactured outside of a Honda factory, and for that price, I've used the spurious stuff on quads before. Yeah, some of the stuff you buy on eBay can be absolutely terrible, but this stuff generally tends to be okay. I'll tell you one thing, it's a lot safer than the one that was on it. That's it, that's the axle in. Next thing we have to pop in is our bearing. So this is our bearing here now, our brand new bearing, to replace the old one that came out. So the first thing we're going to do is add a little bit of oil on it. Zipper on. If you want to help to get the bearing in, use the old bearing. Just put the old bearing up against it. But take your time and just tap it in nice and easy. And just as simple as that, there's our new bearing in there now and seated into place. That's turning lovely and freely. Let's put our dust cap on here now and start assembling our brakes. Close the old bearing again, simply the same way. Just get your piece of wood, tap it in nice and even. That's your dust cap on. Our brake shoes aren't a big job to fit. Don't put your springs on first. Just keep them clean, that's the main thing, keep them clean. There we go. Put your washer back on there now. There's our new set of brake shoes on. There is nothing complicated about that. Once you take your time and just think about things as you're doing it, you'll fly through it. I'm actually going to clean my drum, give my drum a really good clean with a bit of wire wool and stuff, and put it on. And that should slide on quite easily, hopefully. There it is. I'll put a little bit of grease just around this O-ring that sits on the top here. A drum cover, you might see it looks a lot cleaner. I sanded it all down and give it a good painting. we love our impact wrenches. They're brilliant for putting on stuff. Loosen, great, no problem. But don't use them on these because you will rip the threads thin out. This is way too soft for using an impact gun. I promise you will rip the threads out of it. So use a ratchet when you're closing them sort of things. But that's that job done. The next thing we have to do is get our other side all fitted up, get our nuts put back on here and washers, and then start fitting our hubs. Our own nut. Right, so we have them two nuts back on. We're not going to tighten them until we get the wheels back on because it gives me a little bit of leverage. If I had a wrench that was the same size, I could tighten them against each other. That's the way you could do it very easily, but I don't. I only have the one big wrench. So we're not going to do that. We're going to wait till we get the wheels on. We're going to do exactly the way we took it off and tighten them that way. So the next job we're going to do is get the hubs on. Now, nice wee bit of grease on that first. There we go, slide our hub on. Oh, it's lovely to see a new hub, brand new hub going on. And to finish off our new hub, we have a brand new castle nut to finish it off, which only just came this morning. We are, put our split pin in now. We're going to put back on these guards. Now I've painted them all up as well. Got them looking a lot better. Put the rubbers back on, these rubber grommets to stop stuff from vibrating. So I'll stick that back on now. That's our brand new axle fitted. Everything's in place now. All we have to do is throw on our wheels, and then when we get our wheels all on and all back into place, we can drop our back down on our wheels and we can call that a job completed. Now this wheel here, do you see the gap there? And then it's right out to the bead here. So I'm thinking that wheel is either seated wrong or flat, because that's definitely going to cause a wobble in that wheel, unless it's the rim itself. They're not staying on anyway, it's just to get her rolling at the minute, because we're going to be stripping this all down, trying to straighten these rims out a little bit, and we're going to be spraying them. Now we're having a wee bit of a debate what colour we're going to spray them. Silver would be the obvious choice, but then we were thinking going black. Black rims. What would you think of that? What do you think? Should we keep it originally silver, like all other quads, or should we go for the black rims? Let us know in the comment section below. Another thing I did do was I cleaned up this shock, sanded it all down, spent a good while sanding it down, and this tow bar, put a little bit of primer and paint, and just tidied that whole kind of section up. Final job we have to do is just tighten these two nuts up, just the same way as we took them off, and then that'll make that job complete. So just before my battery goes, I'm going to leave it there for the day. That's that job complete. It's one of the big jobs out of the way, but we still have a major job to do with the engine. We'll get to that later on. Maybe you've seen something there that might help you out when you're working on your own quad. In the next episode, we're going to be fitting brand new brake cables all round. We're fitting a new headlight. We're taking off the petrol tank, getting it all stripped down. We're going to be checking out the wiring and making a few repairs that I see where mice must have ate a few of the wires. And we should have this quad up and running in a very short time, because I wasn't planning on making this into a big long restoration. A couple of episodes and we're done. I hope you're enjoying it. It's a little bit of a thing we're going to do in the midweeks now, little bits of restorations on that. I've already been working this last couple of nights on the Ferguson TF20, and the next video will be, will it start? It won't be something that's planned or not, it'll be, will it start? I've watched so many videos on YouTube about Welded starts, and finally I got to make one myself. Anyway folks, thanks very much for watching. If you like what you see, don't forget, hit that sub button, give us a like, and until the next one, we'll talk to you again.